Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 133 of the It's a Pictures podcast. My name is John Gilpatrick, and joining me, as always, is
Max Colville.
We were sort of talking before this how crazy it is that we've done 133 episodes, and I said, well, I haven't done 133 episodes, but you have. So I think it's appropriate for me to say joining me, as always, is Max Colville. But if you did the introduction of the podcast, it would be weird because I'm not always joining you. Sometimes you have a guest.
That's very meta.
Sometimes we have a guest and sometimes you have a guest, but I have never, I think, had a guest myself.
No, I don't. No, I don't think you've done one.
I don't think you've ever missed one, right?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
But I could. I mean, you'll give me a vacation one time, and you'll take over and do one. And
I think we just both.
John, telling it how it is.
Yeah, well, we all know who is the charm behind the operation and who is the real guts behind the operation, right?
Yeah,
the one who actually follows movies and movie culture is a little bit more integral than me, the voice, and the what's this about now? But anyway, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for playoff basketball.
It's been really good.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that and how my team, the Boston Celtics, are still in it and playing basketball.
I've sort of adopted the Celtics as my team for this playoffs. Not for any particular reason, but my teams didn't make the playoffs, and I was just kind of watching because I like to watch basketball and sort of felt like I'd be a neutral observer. But I got so wrapped up in the Boston-Milwaukee series because it was so just intense and every game was super exciting and competitive. And I just felt myself pulled toward Boston for whatever reason. And so I'm happy they prevailed there. I'm rooting for them as far as they'll go from here on out. I think they're definitely, obviously they lost game 1 against Miami. Game 2 is about to tip off. So we'll see if we have any updates as we go. But even if they lose tonight and they head to Boston, I think they still have a chance to come out with a win. But yeah, I'm hoping for it. I mean, we'll both be happy in a month or so if they're able to become NBA champs.
Yeah, it's fun. I like the team the way it's built right now. And
yeah,
they're fun to watch.
Agreed. Cool. So we are going to do an episode this week focusing on Tom Cruise, an actor who everybody I'm sure knows very well from 18 zillion blockbusters over the last 25 plus years. His newest, presumably, is going to be Top Gun Maverick, which is coming out Memorial Day weekend and has been delayed really 18,000 times, it feels like.
But it's real. I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, it is real. You have seen it. We will give a sneak preview as to Max's thoughts as the episode moves along. But we are going to highlight some Tom Cruise performances that we like, a few movies we've watched. I think both of us have watched new to us Tom Cruise movies over the last few days. So we'll get into those in a little bit. We'll do what we've been watching to close. But before we do all that, some news. And I guess the sort of never-ending, seemingly struggle between Netflix and movie theaters is turning a new chapter, so to speak.
Yeah, John, I don't know if you saw it, but Netflix had lower than expected subscriber growth.
I think, didn't they lose subscribers?
Yes, and that caused the stock to go down. And
I bet that's the only company whose stock went down, too. I haven't been paying attention, but everything else must be going well, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. But anyways, Netflix has been doing some reshuffling. They let go of a lot of employees recently and canned some shows. And I guess one of the latest discussions is this idea that they're open to negotiating with the movie theaters again and maybe getting some of these movies that they are developing in the theaters. I saw a follow-up to the article that I shared with you, John, where it was like maybe they'd start this with Knives Out 2. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And since the theatrical window has been shortened due to the pandemic from 90 to 45 days, maybe everyone involved will be interested in playing ball. And it's like it's not unusual for Netflix, really. I mean, for Power of the Dog and maybe The Irishman, they had some like exclusive theatrical engagement. Maybe it was more like 3 weeks as opposed to 45 days. But
Yeah.
um, maybe yeah, maybe that's a chance for them to find some more revenue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt. I mean, at the very least, I feel like, sort of cynically, like maybe it helps their chances to finally win a Best Picture Oscar, because I do feel like there's something to that where they haven't won all these years. I think they've had the expected winner for a number of years in a row. And I think that there's just kind of some animosity amongst some of those voters toward Netflix and the way that they're changing the viewing experience. And if they're going to play ball with movie theaters, then maybe that frostiness will thaw a bit, so to speak.
Yeah, but it's funny, John, because like part of the argument I saw was that since Netflix has a lot of product, right? They release almost a new movie, regardless of its quality,
Yeah,
almost every week, and so that's more stuff that could be put into movie theaters. But on the other token, I guess you look at something like what Disney's been doing, and they just steamroll movie theaters into showing 70 showings of the latest Marvel movie in one day, and
yeah.
I don't know if you need a lot more titles in the multiplexes as if they're just going to be Disney films anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if like what Netflix is making is, I mean, we always hear like, oh, it's the biggest movie, most watched title ever, like blah 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 blah, and like you never actually see numbers associated with that. Well, this will be kind of an interesting case. Like, are the numbers going to be, impressive, or are they going to be kind of laughable? And yeah, if they're not going to have Marvel movies or superhero movies or something really, really close to that, then my guess is that it's it's not going to be blockbuster type numbers. But I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say. Like, it's not like movie theaters are doing amazingly. Like, feels a little bit like a win-win, but I don't know that like, you know, it's going to solve either kind of the business of Netflix or the industry of movie theaters problems.
Right, unless you're the aforementioned comic book movie, you're probably not making bank at the movie theaters right now.
No, no, I wouldn't say so. But to be continued, and I'll be kind of curious to see how this shakes out and sort of what happens after
Uh,
that.
on a small tangent, John, when we're recording this tomorrow, I guess the big uh, older crowd movie, Downton Abbey, A New Age, comes
Yeah,
out, the sequel
yeah.
to the series, and I'm interested to see the numbers on that because I think that group has been the most hesitant to head back to theaters.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're
And
right. Now is probably not the right time for them to do that, with cases going up. I don't know that like that's the same concern as it was last year at this time, or when last time cases were going up. Whatever it was, feels like, you know, has it changed behavior as much as it has in the past? Not necessarily, but still, I would understand some hesitancy around that. But I also think like this is the type of movie that people are going to say like, I think I'm going to risk it because I love my Downton Abbeys.
yeah,
Uh,
no, so yeah, I'll be interested to see from my armchair box office kind of thing.
compare it to the first Downton Abbey movie, which I think came out the year before the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Cool. In other news, there was an article in the Hollywood Reporter discussing Avatar 2, which had a teaser dropped within the last few weeks. Did you talk about that on the last episode? I was absent, obviously.
No, I
I wasn't
don't
sure
think
when it fell in the scheme of recordings here.
Yeah, I don't think I did because I think it was attached to Doctor Strange, and I don't think I talked about that last time. So
Okay, yeah, just curious. Um, but yeah, that dropped, and a story about whether Avatar 2 is going to kind of bring back 3D in the same way that Avatar 1 seemingly did for at least a short while. And can you talk a little bit about sort of the gist of this piece and what it's suggesting?
Yeah, so the argument was that like at least the Doctor Strange showings, there were some that were done in 3D. The hopes that people would see the new Avatar trailer in 3D and get hyped up about that promise of 3D cinema again, since a lot of that has sort of gone away in the past few years. Regardless of the pandemic, it just felt like audiences grew tired of paying that 3D surcharge for movies that didn't really use the format in the best way. And so now it's going to be a challenge to try to get people to readapt to doing 3D. And the hope is that maybe Avatar 2 will do that. I read that Disney is certainly going to try doing more 3D showings up ahead of Avatar. I think they said like Lightyear is going to have 3D showings,
Okay.
and I don't know what else. Maybe Thor, I guess, if they want to do that, and try to get audiences interested in that again ahead of Avatar. But yeah, they're gonna have to be smart about it. I mean, now that the television market has sort of like gone away from 3D, it would
Yeah.
seem that the only way to see 3D movies would be in a theater. So maybe
Yeah.
if they really make it like, oh, you have to see this 3D movie in a movie theater, and this is the only way that you'll ever see it the way that it's supposed to. Maybe they can make an event out of it that way. But it's funny, John. It's like I didn't think that people were excited about Avatar 2, but
Really?
regardless of 3D, I mean that trailer was viewed a whole ton, and people seem like they're excited, even though it's been a long time since the first one.
I mean, I think that that works in his favor. Like, if you release this in 2012 or 2013, when I think people were making a lot of Avatar jokes and having like the whole thing is like, oh, why did we all flip over this movie? It's no good and blah blah blah. Like, it's like it's I'm sure it does well, but it's not going to do amazingly. But I feel like now I don't even know if people have come around on Avatar. If it's more just like, okay, well, this is just like something, something that's not Marvel, it's Disney, but it's like, you know, it's kind of different, right? That's sort of how I feel about it. Although I liked Avatar. I didn't really feel like it was, you know, uh, what its critics seemed to suggest it was. But I'm just like, yeah. I mean, same with Top Gun. Like, I like the Top Gun, so I'm, I think different category there. But probably a lot of people are like, well, this is like they don't really make movies like this anymore. It's not doesn't have those heroes in it, so let's just give it a chance.
Yeah, I mean, that's more along the lines of talking about audiences being excited for Avatar. But John, let's circle back to the 3D ness of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And what do you think about that? Do you think like it can bring back 3D movies? You think that there still might be a market for 3D?
I would say the same thing which I kind of thought at the time, which was I didn't think this immediately at the time, but like you saw Avatar in 3D and it's like, well, this looked really cool. Like I don't love wearing these glasses, but like it looked great. I really enjoyed seeing it like this. And then the next big 3D movie was the Alice in Wonderland, and they just did the conversion post filming or whatever, which they ended up doing for most of the movies because it's cheaper, and it looked like shit, and it was not a fun experience at all. And they killed it. Right? They were like, "Oh, we have to do this. Like, but we could do it cheaper. Let's do it cheaper." And it's like, oh yeah, it also like totally sacrifices quality, and nobody really wants to pay for their movie to look worse. So I
Yeah,
think they'll
I could count on my hand like the amount of 3D movies that I actually felt were worth
I yeah, right.
the upcharge.
Agreed. And I feel like that's probably going to be the case now, whatever they end up doing. They'll, it'll be a huge hit. People think they can try to make 3D happen again. They already have the technology for it, because they bought all the special equipment after Avatar, I'm assuming, or before Avatar, I guess. But the studios are just kind of bludgeon it to death, like really bluntly and horrifically, like they did last time, and then it'll go away until Avatar 3 comes out.
Well, I guess, but the
That
sketch.
won't be as long of a wait.
No, since he's been working, and I guess the plan is like one every other year, for four of them. So
Yeah, no, I don't know. Something like that. I'm guessing that there's gonna be a lot of shitty 3D movies that come out after Avatar 2. But it's it's gonna kind of follow a similar trajectory.
yeah, it will be interesting for a little while, and then not. I
I guess the
what
one thing I'm like mildly curious about is like it felt like you're right. You could count on one hand or two hands, maybe if you're being generous, like the amount of movies where the 3D worked, and those tended to be by directors who are really good directors, like
right.
Martin Scorsese with Hugo and Alfonso Cuarón with Gravity, and I'm sure a few others I'm forgetting.
Those are the two that came my
Well, yeah,
head.
because there are like obvious examples after Avatar. But then like, are there directors who? I mean, it feels like that for them was like, I'm curious how I can do this, and they did it, and they did it well. And like, are there directors who didn't take a crack at it last time that feel like they want to do that again? That is kind of I think, an interesting wrinkle in that question. Like, who's going to pick up the ball from James Cameron and move it forward?
Yeah, who knows? I mean,
If nobody, then like I said, it dies quickly. But
yeah, because I'm of the mindset. I kind of like these large format pictures. You know, the kinds that they allow Christopher Nolan to make.
uh-huh.
Give me the whole full frame IMAX screen as opposed to 3D. I think I find that a little bit more immersive.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. One of those that I can remember vividly was a Tom Cruise movie, which maybe now is a good transition to that.
Yeah,
Did you see Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol in IMAX?
I did.
That was something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and very scary.
It sure was.
But for our Tom Cruise talk today, I think John and I agreed that we weren't going to talk too much about the
No,
Mission Impossibles because we do have a whole episode dedicated to that
yeah,
already.
which was in advance of Fallout, I believe. So you can go back to summer 2018
Yeah,
in the archives.
maybe we'll add a Fallout conversation to the end of that podcast someday, or just like record another one before these two new sequels come out.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fun. So we'll steer away from the Missions Impossible and talk a little bit more about some of the other movies he's done over his fairly lengthy, and I would say illustrious, although sometimes controversial career, right?
Yeah, I mean, uh, for a man who is so beloved in cinema, he certainly has his distractions, if you will, and he he he's beloved more, I think, in movies than he is as a person. Sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. The Scientology thing was a big deal. I'm sure remains a big deal for some people, but felt like in the like mid aughts, he was a little bit of a pariah type figure for a variety of reasons. Some probably fair and some maybe not. I'm not sure. Like, I don't remember all the details, but I just remember him being wrapped up in Scientology, him getting into a fight with Matt Lauer, which in hindsight maybe is a little bit more
It's
complicated than it
okay.
was at the time.
Yeah.
And jumping on the couch and just like feeling like, oh, did this guy like lose his mind, or then maybe was he always like that?
Yeah, he had his marriages to Nicole Kidman and then Katie Holmes. That's who. Yes,
Yeah,
he's definitely been in the tabloids a lot, and has been scrutinized for everything that he's done. Um, but he seems like he honestly loves what he does, right? Because during the midst of COVID, he was caught on audio yelling
yeah.
at the crew how important it was that they followed COVID protocol. And
Yeah, and that was
uh,
another thing that like kind of interestingly was like taken out of context, right? At the time it was like Tom Cruise berates crew member, and then like we got the story of like, oh, he was doing it because the crew member was like not following COVID protocol and he was trying to stand up for the production and making sure that no people weren't going to be out of work or get sick or whatever it was because of COVID. So it sort of seemed like more defensible. but he probably contains multitudes that observers could not understand. But on the screen, he's a very uncomplicated character, right?
Yeah, I mean, he does these high octane stunt movies, big blockbusters, and then he certainly had his fair share of dramas too. I mean, while Cruise has not won an Oscar as far as I know,
No.
um, he he has numerable fantastic performances, stuff like Magnolia and Born on the
Mhm.
4th of July, which I love him in both of those movies.
And the types of characters he tends to play, whether it's an action movie or a drama or a comedy or anything to that effect, is very, turned up to 11 out of 10. Uh, Kind of cocky, arrogant, sometimes deservedly so, sometimes not. Always
Jerry
pretty
Maguire.
charming. Yeah, always pretty charming. Sometimes has some pathos associated with it. And I think, like, for the most part, he does all of that stuff quite well. Sometimes I think some, better than others, but um, you know, he, I think, figured out pretty quickly as a movie star, like, what people responded to out of him, and was pretty smart about picking projects that fit that persona well, and sometimes it feels like he's stretching a bit, but he never stretches too far where it's like, that was weird. No, like, I never saw Tom Cruise like that before, or something like that.
Right, even like something like you thought, or at least I did on paper, thought like something like The Last Samurai was really strange for him, but
And
then
it,
you
well, it kind of is, but
but then you watch it and it's a pretty good movie. I like that one.
I was thinking of, like, Tropic Thunder, where
Oh
he
yes,
is playing a character that doesn't look like a lot of his other characters, but in terms of, like, him kind of owning the scenes he's in, it feels like Tom Cruise.
right.
But yeah, it's I mean, I enjoy Tom Cruise movies. I look forward to them. I think he's one of the few actors right now that you could say that about, where he can kind of bring people in based off of him, and not much else. Um, but
Yeah,
this
he's
was
an A-list Hollywood movie star.
yeah. Let's talk about some of the movies we watched recently, and then I'll give you a chance to talk a little bit about Top Gun Maverick, and then maybe we could do kind of like a quick rapid fire, like, other Cruise movies and performances we enjoy.
All right.
Um, so I'll start. And I watched two movies this week that I thought would be fun to discuss. One of them was a first time watch, and the other one is something I've seen a bunch of times. But Max, I think you've never seen either. So I'll try to stay relatively spoiler free. But the first one I'll talk about is The Firm, which came out in 1993. It's based on a John Grisham novel. I think it was like, I could be wrong on this, but for some reason I feel like it was like the first John Grisham novel, or like the first big John Grisham novel. So it was like the sort of thing where everybody in Hollywood was like clamoring to get this made as quickly as possible. And um, obviously, they got Tom Cruise to sort of star in it, and they got Sidney Pollack to direct it, so not too shabby there either. It's got like a really big cast. Tom Cruise plays like a young lawyer right out of Harvard Law School, and he is being recruited by like every major law firm in the country, and he kind of has the pick of the litter. Like, he can go wherever he wants, and he's getting recruited by places in Chicago and New York and California, and he ends up settling for this law firm based in Memphis, and it's kind of a small law firm, but they say that, it's like a real family atmosphere, and they bring him down there to meet everybody and show him like how close knit they all are, and he's really attracted to that because he has kind of complicated family dynamics, which all I think are probably not worth getting into in a brief description here. Um, but as he kind of does the job, and he gets really close to another lawyer there, his kind of mentor there is played by Gene Hackman. He realizes that, like, the family dynamic that they're promoting is a little bit more obtrusive, I guess you could say, than it seemed like on the surface, and that he starts to get, and particularly his wife, start to get a little bit uncomfortable with like how involved the firm is in their kind of personal lives, and things kind of get a little bit weirder when they find out that two lawyers died mysteriously in the Cayman Islands, and those were not the first two lawyers that worked at this firm that died young. So that's kind of the setup for the firm. And
Bum bum bum.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, for obvious reasons, came out right around the same time. I think same year, maybe a year later. Um, and the fact that it's covers similar like legal world thriller. I would compare this film to The Pelican Brief. Um, I think that I like this one more. It definitely like moves at a quicker pace. I watched a Pelican Brief like relatively recently, and it's a pretty slow movie, even though I still like it. This one, it's longer. This one is like 2.5 hours long, so there's like definitely I felt like probably some meat that it could have come off the bone, but it moves at a quicker pace, and he is like this is like very very like late 80s early 90s Tom Cruise before he gets into kind of the more, he still has a baby face. He is in over his head and like kind of going 90 miles an hour to try to stay above the stay above the fray. But yeah, I found it pretty gripping. I found like some of the plot twists enjoyable. Holly Hunter's in the movie. She's pretty fun. Gary Busey is in the movie for 5 minutes and he is hilarious. Um, Hal Holbrook, who I always like. So there's just like a lot of great actors and actresses in this one. And I've had it forever. Like I've had the like Blu-ray of this movie for years and years, and I've just never, for whatever reason, never watched it, and I was happy to have this opportunity to do it, and it didn't really disappoint.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I guess, like looking at the timeline, he did this relatively right after A Few Good Men.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So it's kind of like back to back or close to it. Legal thrillers there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I would assume that they were probably filmed, like that this would have had to start filming before A Few Good Men came out, and that but maybe he had a good experience doing that, and so it was like, yeah, this is perfect. Jump back into this legal world, which I like the legal movies. They're pretty
So,
fun.
so, so I'm gonna just make the assumption for the podcast that you and I have seen a good deal of Tom Cruise movies. Would you rate The Firm as a hit? Like you have to include it in the pantheon of Tom Cruise movies, or you could skip it?
I would say I would not skip it. I would watch it. Is it like his best performance? No. Is it the best movie he's even been in? I mean, I think A Few Good Men is both a better performance and a better legal movie than The Firm. But I don't think that like the movie doesn't have flaws where I'm just like, yeah, it's forgettable. You can skip it. Like it's just fun and really compulsively watchable. And I would be happy to watch it again. Like I watched it by myself, but I told my wife, I was like, you ever see the movie The Firm? And she's like, no. And she likes The Pelican Brief. She's a big Julia Roberts fan. So I was like, it's better than that movie. Like, you'd like this. And she's like, okay, let's watch it. And I was like, yeah, I'd watch it again.
Sold.
Yeah. So that's that. That's The Firm. Good movie.
All right, so I won't let you go back to back with your picks here, and I'll step in, and I'll talk about a movie that came out 3 years before The Firm, and that is Days of Thunder. Uh, John had talked about Days of Thunder, I think, a little bit during his Tony Scott collection there, right?
Marathon there. Yeah. Yeah. I did. Yeah. I'm sure I talked about it on the podcast at one point or another.
Yeah, so I didn't know really what to expect of this one. I guess afterwards I'd been doing some research, and like they were like, oh yeah, it's kind of like repeating what Top Gun tried to do.
Yeah.
Certainly same star and director, um, but I think it's quite a bit different. Uh, Here we have Tom Cruise. He comes into the picture. He's just wants to drive in Daytona, the stock car racing, and he's not a very bright man. His pit crew chief played by Robert Duvall, kind of has to explain everything to him and tell him why things aren't working correctly.
Yeah.
But after some initial bickering back and forth, they sort of get on the same page, and you know, Tom Cruise's character, he he does well for himself in this circuit. He has one big nemesis at the beginning of the movie, and it's played by Guardians of the Galaxy's Michael Rooker,
Right. Yes.
and he plays like Rowdy Burns, and he's
Rowdy Burns.
yeah, yeah, and they're always trading paint on the bumpers around the racetrack, and it so happens that uh, they get into some trouble, and they're told pretty much like, oh, they had to tone down the fighting, and I guess that doesn't really work for them, and they have a collision, and they both go into the hospital, and they meet a doctor played by Nicole Kidman, and she kind of treats them. And John, this is very funny. I saw this tweeted out before I saw the movie, like a few days before I saw the movie, and the scene that introduces Nicole Kidman to Tom Cruise in the movie, he is recovering from his accident, and early in the movie, his team decided to play a joke on him and like have him be arrested. And while he's being arrested and frisked, the a lady cop grabs his penis,
Yeah.
and they all laugh at that, and he has a good time. So when he's in the hospital, he thinks, "Oh, you bought me Nicole Kidman. I'm just gonna go ahead and have her grab my penis too."
Oh my god.
I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, but they she this great doctor, a neurosurgeon probably, because she studies concussions and stuff like that, falls in love with this stock car driver, uh, because he sends her all the flowers, and they have a passionate romance, and I guess the new big bad, why Tom Cruise was away, is played by Carrie Elwes from Princess Bride, and he is the nemesis of the second half of the movie. Um, but you know, the movie plays out just like you would expect. There's no real twists and turns going on here. It's a straightforward, like, oh, underdog story. This kid comes into it, no one expects anything, and he tries to make something of himself. Uh, I guess I was surprised, John, just like how well cast it was, and um, you even look like there was a young John C. Reilly in the movie, and
Oh yeah,
like
right. He's
he's
like
in it.
another picker guy, right?
Yeah, he's in it very briefly,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Is
wait,
he
he was
somebody's
young.
brother?
I think like his father like was the former driver, and he got into the accident and
I
passed
can't.
away.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I did watch this. It was like probably like days before COVID, so it's a little blurry. Maybe I need Nicole Kidman to sort of like figure that out for me,
Yeah.
as the neuroscientist. But I do the one thing I do remember is thinking that like I enjoyed this movie a lot. Definitely is, you know, shades of Top Gun, same director, same kind of premise. Need for Speed, just on the ground. The movie would be considerably more satisfying if it was honest with itself and made the romance between Tom Cruise and Michael Rooker and just leave Nicole Kidman out of it, because I don't think I'm like even stepping on a turn and saying like that is the romance of this movie.
Yeah, I could see that because the way that the relationship turns, and
Yeah,
they become besties. But
they're
I
more
did,
than besties. The movie's just, you know, that's all in the deleted scenes or whatever.
but I did like the romance between Cruise and Kidman, and this is where they really met. I guess they got married like 6 months after the movie came out.
Yeah, and then they did
Um,
Far and Away.
yeah. So I think that there is obviously chemistry between the two of them.
They
Uh,
fell in love on a movie set and had their marriage destroyed on a movie set. And
they,
those were the 90s, kids.
yeah, they just love the movies. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really love this.
That's funny that you say that because, like, I liked the movie, but I didn't. I thought the worst part of it was Cruz and Kidman, and I didn't think they had chemistry. Um, and it sounds like you're kind of the opposite, where it's like, well, the romance is not bad, but the rest of the movie is kind of rote.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen other movies where I enjoy like the mentor relationship with
Yeah.
the underdog, right? Like you can even something as like goofy as like Highlander. I really like that
Uh huh.
with Sean Connery as the mentor figure. I don't really jive with this Robert Duvall Tom Cruise relationship in this movie, and I don't know. It wasn't a winner for me. I did watch Days of Thunder on HBO Max, so if you're interested in checking it out, there, it's currently streaming.
Okay. All right. So the next movie for me was Vanilla Sky, which I have seen many times. And really enjoy. I think I don't really know what his reputation is like nowadays. I feel like,
I think it's bad because like
is it?
yeah, because I've never seen it because like I've heard that it just never lived up to expectations of being a movie right after Almost Famous for Cameron Crowe
So I
and
think that definitely like the reception at the time was, I think, pretty cold. I don't know if it was like a bomb. I mean, I think it did poorly at the box office, but in terms of reviews, I think it was like mixed leaning negative. I know some people have like appraised it very, very well over the years
oh,
since it
all
came
right.
out, but I don't know that that's like a consensus opinion at this point. I'm not sure what the consensus opinion on it is right now, but I really like it. I've always liked it a lot. It is a remake of a Spanish movie called Abre los Ojos by, I believe, Alejandro Amenabar from a few years earlier. And they, use the Abre los Ojos and Open Your Eyes translated into English in the movie many times. Tom Cruise plays like the most prototypical Tom Cruise character you could even imagine. He is like a rich New Yorker. He runs a publishing company. He is rich because his dad was rich. He drives a fancy car through Manhattan. He, every woman wants him. Super cocky. Just exactly like you would draw it up in your mind. And he is sort of, he's got like a friends with benefit slash loose dating relationship with Cameron Diaz. But at his birthday party, he meets for the first time a woman named Sophia, who's played by Penelope Cruz. And it's just like love at first sight, basically. And they spend the night together in a platonic way. They draw pictures of each other and they have scintillating conversation. And it's kind of all clouded by the fact that Cameron Diaz is like stalking him from across the room at every turn throughout during the party. Um, and so eventually he gets into the car with Cameron Diaz, and she explains that, whether he thought so or not, his body made a promise to her body, and that he's broken the promise. And as punishment, she drives them off a bridge and crashes the car. Uh, During all of this, we're doing kind of it's really like more of a flashback structure, and he's explaining this whole situation to seemingly a psychologist who's played by Kurt Russell, and Tom Cruise is wearing this kind of bizarre mask the whole time, and he's in prison. And so we don't really know the details of all that, but we learn, the accident is what led to the mask. The prison thing kind of comes a little bit later, but he's like disfigured. His face is disfigured, which is obviously like a problem for somebody like him who prides himself on his image. And his life kind of falls apart. And that's probably all I'll get into in case there's people like you who haven't seen this and are curious. But it is like a mystery throughout exactly what's going on. Um, and it kind of unveils itself like in, I would say, I mean, I remember the first time I saw this, just like it kind of like blew my mind. It's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And I think that's part of what people didn't like about it. It's very like, the reveal is like very out there, and it takes a lot of explanation, which I think is kind of a tough thing for storytellers. Like, it's not always successful. I wouldn't say this is entirely successful. The answer is like definitely not what you would expect it to be. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess I can get what you're saying, John, because it's just like if you if you've looked at the clues and you think a certain way, certainly when people watch procedurals, maybe they find some comfort in knowing that they have sort of figured it out or could see where it's going and are
yeah,
rewarded for their ideas.
but this is
Whereas,
like without getting too much into it, like it's an outlandish answer to a lot of mysteries. Um, but I kind of like didn't get hung up on it too much the first time I saw it, and I think that that's the key to appreciating the movie or not appreciating the movie is like, do you want to give yourself over to it or not? And I feel like because Cruz's character is like a hard guy to sort of feel sympathy for, even though like it's a kind of a really shitty thing that happens to him. He's just not like a likable character. Then you just like don't really want to go there with the movie. But for whatever reason, I did, and I still did this time around. Like, I started watching this kind of late at night one night, and like I watched the whole thing because I find it really compelling. And he's, like I said, this is like the, if you asked me like what is the Tom Cruise movie, I mean, I guess I'd go Mission Impossible first because like there's so many of those, and I feel like that's just bled into so many others. But like outside of the Mission Impossible thing, I think the Cameron Crowe combo of Jerry Maguire and Vanilla Sky are like my mind's eye version of Tom Cruise film. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that, but certainly if you're giving it a positive reception, and this isn't just your first watch, this is many times over that you've watched it and still feel pretty positive about it.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know why I like this movie.
I think that's a watch for people who have been passing on Vanilla Sky.
If you ever like had an inclination of like, what is this movie about? Why is this like a forgotten Cameron Crowe movie? Is this a forgotten Tom Cruise movie? Ironically, we talked about him and Nicole Kidman meeting on the set of Days of Thunder. Of course, that was in 1990. They got divorced shortly after Eyes Wide Shut in 1999, and then in 2000, he makes this movie with Penelope Cruz, and they become a thing, Cruz and Cruz. Um, I don't think it lasted very long, but that was, I think, out of this movie. So lots of on-set romances over the years for this guy.
Oh yeah.
So I like Vanilla Sky. I give a recommend. And what's up next for you, Max?
Yeah, so since I recently rewatched Top Gun ahead of seeing Top Gun Maverick, I thought it would be appropriate to discuss it. It's funny, John, because I was looking at Tom Cruise's filmography, and there's just so many winners here, right? Because you're talking like he's a star, he's like an A-list actor for sure, and I'm looking at like even some of the movies that I might not have seen in his filmography. I'm just like, oh well, yeah, I should probably see those. But,
No, I know. I mean, like, I was looking at what did I want to watch, and I chose The Firm because it was the one that I hadn't seen, and I've seen really like a lot of them because he's an actor who I tend to just like the movies is, or at least I'm curious about them. But if you wanted to like rewatch something, you could go to the Spielberg movies with Minority Report and War of the Worlds. Obviously, the Crow movies. He's got Jerry Maguire too, which is a much more beloved Cameron Crowe movie. You mentioned Magnolia up front, Born on the Fourth of July, probably his most acclaimed performances. There's tons of options.
oh yeah, sure. And before we get over to rambling off even more of them, yeah. So Top Gun, and what's funny, John, is that with Top Gun Maverick coming out, I learned that there's a lot of people who don't like the original Top Gun. I was shocked. I was
I'm
like,
not super shocked to hear that.
you aren't, but
Like, I love the movie. I think it's
no,
great.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I really enjoyed Top Gun, and I was trying to figure out
Yeah.
why people who didn't enjoy Top Gun, or why some of the people who might have enjoyed now Top Gun Maverick just preferred it head and tails over the original Top Gun. And
Do you think it's
that
just
was
that like it's easy to mock?
maybe, or like I guess I'll get into it. So the beginning
Yeah,
of
sorry.
Top
Go
Gun
ahead.
is very much like, yeah, let's celebrate the military and celebrate these giant weapons, these planes, and you have the Top Gun anthem soaring and cutting into danger zone, and just utterly classic opening. And then you have just like this weird, it just jumps into like combat. And one of the things that Top Gun does is that it kind of plays it like the the conflict is like a no name conflict, which is kind of
Uh-huh.
weird. It does, it
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
says, oh, they're MiGs, right? And
yeah.
they're not like Japan or Russia. They're just like, yeah, we're not gonna like
That was like a
blame it on
big
anybody.
thing, like
Yeah.
in movies back in the day. Like we didn't want to like accidentally start a war by like pretending we were in a war.
Right. So yeah, they're just fighting some MiGs, and
Or I guess it was probably more of like we want to sell this movie overseas, and we don't want it to not get allowed in Japan or wherever because we're pretending we're at war.
right.
Right? That makes more
Um
sense.
and so we're introduced to Tom Cruise's Maverick character. That's his code
It's
sign,
call
and
sign,
he
yeah.
has call sign, and his partner Goose, and they don't play by the rules. I mean, if there's one thing that you need to know about Maverick throughout this movie, is that he doesn't care for authority. And even though that's the case, um, the man in his squadron who was supposed to attend this prestigious flight school known as Top Gun um, quits after a harrowing flight, and it seems like Maverick is elevated to the competition of great uh, pilots. And when he gets there, he meets most notably Iceman, played by Val Kilmer. There's other pilots there, but they don't really figure into the movie and or the competition. It's funny because when I think about things that people might not like about Top Gun, other than like, oh, this like pro-military film, and how its plot is kind of loosey goosey. Uh, One thing that really comes to mind is like they make a big deal about this Top Gun competition, and it doesn't really matter at all. And like, there's no way to know like when somebody's doing good or bad because they're not like charting it at all. You just get the sense that it's just between Iceman and Maverick, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah, I
And
think that was the first time I watched it. I feel like I had that take where it's just like, okay, like ultimately, what is the point of this movie? And then when I rewatched it for my Tony Scott marathon, I was kind of like, maybe the point of it is just like cool shit and fun shit.
right, and so other than this like Top Gun competition, the bigger the other side of the movie is about this romance, right? And
Yeah.
it's about Maverick meeting up with this woman who he comes to find out is his uh superior instructor at Top Gun, played
Mm-hmm.
by Kelly McGillis. And
Down, 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 down.
right, they start this illicit romance between teacher and student, and you have Berlin's "Take My Breath Away" as John was sharing, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it works as a purpose, like to give him some kind of avenue outside of the flight stuff, and some part of me almost feels like that is more compelling in some cases. His romance track on this one.
Oh, I totally agree.
Like
And
some of the
Goose and Meg Ryan. I mean, it's just
yeah, right. It feels like the flying is there, but I don't know. Maybe it was just like the limitations of the technology, or just like some of how was kind of how it was structured, right? There's this other big story about like Maverick's father, right? How he was like a great pilot that was mission missing in action, and like it's supposed to be like a big deal and like shape how Maverick is like against authority.
yeah.
And it's kind of like wished away at the end, and like a conversation. Um, it just I think like the that is my biggest reservation of the movie, is like that its plot is kind of all over the place and just
Yeah.
kind of just there to suit whatever the movie needs. But I did like the romance between Cruz and McGillis, and yeah, I think like his friendship with Kilmer's character is pretty rewarding as well.
I think that Iceman. I think that romance at fighter pilot school is kind of like the hook. Um, it definitely, I think, is what makes this movie so memorable, and it's the music, like the volleyball, like it's all that stuff is so. There's so many iconic moments that I think, and then well, the some of the personal sacrifices, so to speak, that come later on. So,
Yeah, I mean
um,
everybody in this movie though has to be wet 100% of the time. Like
whether
they're
they're
just like
sweating or in the water,
they
that's
just have to be
fair.
like dripping wet.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, I like Top Gun. Now, Top Gun Maverick, we've got coming out very soon. There are what's the hook here? We're all these years in the future, Tom Cruise's character is now going to be an instructor.
Yes, he's going to. That's how he's going to get back to Top Gun.
Right.
He's an instructor
And
for.
Goose's kid is one of the. Am I
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes,
Do we
yes.
know that, or is that like a twist?
No, that's been seen in trailers
Okay,
and
that's what I
and
thought. I was like,
trailers.
I thought that
Yeah.
was common knowledge, but I didn't want to step out of turn there.
No, if you know it, then it's it's good. It's common knowledge. Yeah. So the idea is that Goose's kid is now in Top Gun, or was in Top Gun, and is now returning to the program along with Maverick, and they're going to possibly butt heads, and that there's a big group of new pilots to meet and see for the first time. There's an ex-love, and played by Jennifer Connelly, that she's playing like the new love interest
Okay.
in Top Gun Maverick, and then you have uh, possibly some uh, some new footage of with Val Kilmer possibly as Iceman coming back.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you saw it obviously, and I think you wrote about it for the newsletter, or that's coming.
No, I wrote a review for the newsletter.
Oh, good. Okay. So, I mean, do you want to tell us your kind of thoughts
Oh yeah,
initially?
I really liked it. I mean,
Yeah.
like I really like the original Top Gun.
Yeah.
So, um, all these people saying it's leagues better. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that to be true, because I like the original so much. But it's certainly a very good movie. The plot is um much more uh easier to understand from A to B, knowing what's going on. And what's funny is that I think that this movie's kind of the opposite from Top Gun, whereas I think that the flying and the combat stuff is way more interesting. than whatever
Yeah, right.
romance thing he has
I've
going on.
seen other people say that too.
So it's fun that I guess that is the opposite for this one. And no, I'm excited to see it. I saw it like in one of the like small IMAX screens in Boston. It's like not true IMAX, and luckily in Rhode Island we have a true IMAX, and I'm looking forward to going and seeing it again.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it very much. So cool. Any final thoughts? I mean, we've I think over the course of this kind of rattled off various other Tom Cruise movies we like or performances, like others that maybe you want to share.
Yeah, you mentioned Eyes Wide Shut briefly.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
so do I.
It's fantastic. What I was thinking about the other day is that we're coming on the 20th anniversary of Minority Report,
Great
and yeah,
movie,
I think he is fantastic in that.
so good.
I had forgotten like he's the actual lead in Edge of Tomorrow. I thought it was like just like Emily Blunt's movie.
Yeah. So I
uh,
would say Edge of Tomorrow was a movie that when it came out, I like was kind of cold to. Um, but it was if we recorded this tomorrow, I would have watched Edge of Tomorrow because I really wanted to give it another look. I haven't seen it since the first time I saw it. So I'm gonna watch that and maybe I'll discuss it on the next episode and
okay.
what we've been watching. But yeah, that was one that I just kind of I don't know for whatever reason I wasn't like super into, and I know people love that movie. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I think just one more of note, given like how many he's done, is like I guess the director of Top Gun 2 previously directed him in the movie Oblivion, which is
Right.
it's a pretty decent science fiction movie.
Yeah, yeah, Oblivion's good. Not amazing, but it's good. Cool. I'm on his IMDb page right now. And I'm seeing that the Mission Impossible sequels are titled Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Dead Reckoning Part 2, which sounds pretty dope.
Yeah, that was a recent thing. I
Okay,
think
yeah,
I
I
brought
missed
up.
that.
Yeah, that's
So
what happens when you're not online anymore, John.
yeah, well, it's okay. Also read a book, so that was cool.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I love the movie Collateral. It was
Oh
like
yeah, that's great.
a running joke amongst my friends when I was in high school because I used to talk about it so much. And they're like, "Oh, John, do you like Collateral?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like it. I get it." But that movie slaps. Um, you mentioned Magnolia. I think maybe his best performance. It's just so good and really good ensemble movie. We didn't talk too much about his like early movies. I've never seen a few of his like 80s things like Cocktail. I've never seen but Risky Business I think is probably his breakout
Right.
role, right? And that's you know pretty fun movie, I guess.
Yeah.
uh
Did you watch The Color and Money? Like people
no,
say, like
you did. I
no,
almost
no, I
watched it
didn't. I
before
watched
that.
the original.
Oh, well, I should have watched it then. I thought you did. I thought we had talked about that, but you're right. You did The Hustler, right?
Yes, I did The Hustler, not The Color
Okay,
and Money.
my mistake. Yeah, well, then that's something to catch up with sometime for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered like the big ones and the ones that I'm most jazzed for. Um, I talked about the Mummy on our Mummy episode last summer, so uh, I don't need to
Yeah, don't miss
say
the Mummy,
much
I guess.
much more about that, but yeah, this was fun. I think we love Tom Cruise movies. I don't think we'll get canceled for saying that.
Yeah.
And just an actor who I'll always get excited for what he's got coming out, especially at this point in his career. I feel like he had some stretches where it was a little bit aimless and kind of not always a guaranteed fun fun time, but he's been I think pretty reliable of late, Mummy aside. So yeah, so we'll do a quick what we've been watching, but before we do that, we'll let you know how you can follow us. Our podcast is on Twitter at It's the Pick Pod, and Max, you're at,
MH Colville.
and you can like us on Facebook at It's the Pictures. You can also send us an email at itsthepictures@gmail.com with your favorite Tom Cruise movies or your thoughts on the Top Gun Maverick, if and when you check it out. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts or any other podcatching app. while you're there, please leave us a review. 5 stars will help other people discover and enjoy the show. You can also follow us on Letterboxd. Just search for It's the Pictures, and you can see all the things that we're logging there collectively. And finally, there's the Substack with Max's newsletter. Just go to itsthepictures.substack.com. You can see his Top Gun Maverick review. You wrote something about the man who shot Liberty Valance,
Yep.
like the old movie, or is that like a new thing?
The old movie,
Oh, okay.
it just came out on 4K this past
Oh,
Tuesday.
neat. Okay. That's cool. I watched that when I was in like 8th grade English class. And we read the story. But I was not, I mean, that was not like the age to watch The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and appreciate it. So it's something that, like, I guess technically I've seen, but I really don't remember. And I would like to rewatch, I think, someday.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite westerns.
Dope. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll also quickly mention here that if you want to listen to more of me, you can check out There Will Be Pod, which we came back after a brief hiatus. We did our big wrap up bracket for movies of 2021 back in like January, February, and then we took a couple months off. We just did an episode, I think that dropped last week, with are basically everything that's come out in 2022 to date that we talked about. So feel free to give that a listen or subscribe if you're interested in that. On that episode, one of the movies I talked about was The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which we also did a Nick Cage episode about a month ago. So you can listen to that if you want to hear our thoughts on Nick Cage movies. And I think on our last episode, our guest discussed this movie in brief, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
So it's been all over the place. This movie across at least my podcasting universe, but I saw it, and it was as weird as to say my first time back in the movies since the pandemic started. So it was a long time for me. I know a lot of other people ventured out sooner. I was pretty insistent I wasn't going to do it until I got vaccinated, but even then, I was just like, okay, like I guess I can go back. But every time there was something I wanted to see, it was like, oh, well, it's going to be streaming in 2 weeks. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll just wait. And it just never really happened. But we were visiting my in-laws, which is why I missed the last episode, in Michigan, and they wanted to go to the movies. It was my mother-in-law's birthday, and she wanted to see this. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm breaking the streak. So it was really nice to be back. I enjoyed it. It was a mid-afternoon movie, so not too many people in there, and obviously, it was like 2 or 3 weeks into this movie's run, so it wasn't super packed, I think, probably at any point. But I had a really fun time with it. I don't know how much of it was just like fun to be seeing something on a big screen versus like this was a great movie, but I enjoyed it. I thought the best thing about it was just the chemistry between Nick Cage, both the actor and the character, I guess, and Pedro Pascal, the actor.
Yeah.
They were both really fun. I remember Pedro Pascal being, one of the, I think, highlights of that season of Game of Thrones he was on. It was like he uh, wasn't on for so long, but he burned very brightly while he was on the show. And he was great here too. So I thought it was
And
pretty.
he's good behind a mask in Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, I kept up with that. But absolutely. I would say I was kind of surprised. I wasn't too surprised I enjoyed it because I like, movies like this. I was a little bit surprised that like everybody I saw it with enjoyed it, including my wife. Like everybody really thought it was fun. And I thought maybe it's gonna be like a little too meta, or that there was gonna be too many like references that they didn't enjoy. And I don't think they caught all of them. I'm sure I didn't catch all of them, but I don't think it was prohibitive to us enjoying it. So,
Did
um,
you think you caught a few more after our conversation about Nick Cage's career, or?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. There was some obvious and probably some less obvious that, only like real diehards would have noticed. But
I've heard that there might be like a few movies that like you could really pinpoint
yeah,
due to some of the more like where more of the references come from than not, if you want to
sure.
like.
And there's
really
like,
getting
you
there.
know, this room of Nick Cage artifacts and stuff that
Right.
was kind of fun. But again, like I was like, I don't know that I can see what all this stuff is, or would even if I could. So
Yeah, if you pause the screen, maybe.
yeah, sure, fair enough. Um, but yeah, I thought, you know, it was definitely a good time. I'm glad I saw it. Glad to have gone back to the theater. I feel like that, like the pressure of that is lifted. The unbearable weight of not seeing movies in theaters is gone. So I'm definitely gonna venture out for Top Gun Maverick and a handful of other summer movies that I'm psyched for, and I'm sure other stuff too that I might not know as much about. But yeah, it was a good time, good movie, and that's basically it. Before you go, Max, do you want to take a guess of the Celtics Heat score that just went to half?
I don't need to take a guess because I
Oh,
have ESPN on.
so you're probably excited about that
Yes, I am very excited that the Celtics are up by 25 at
at
halftime.
halftime. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I'm glad you're happy about that.
yeah.
You, I believe, watched a couple new-ish Marvel movies.
Yeah, so before I jump into that and get near the end here, John, two things. One, I can't wait for you to possibly see Everything Everywhere All at
Oh, I
Once.
know, I
I've
know.
seen it. I've seen it twice in the movie
Yeah.
theaters, and I loved it. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts on that.
I will say, on our we on the There Will Be Pod episode we did, we each counted down our top five movies of the first half of the year so far, or not first half, whatever, first few months of the year that have come out to date. And one of the co-hosts said not only was Everything Everywhere All at Once his favorite movie of the year so far, but it might be his favorite movie of the millennia, I guess, since the year 2000. He was that
Wow.
enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
So
Well, hopefully more people get to check that out soon. And then John, number two, I didn't realize this till the other day when I was doing some research for some possible work. But did you know that this June is the 40th anniversary of a historic June?
so that would be, yes, the 1982, The Thing, and Poltergeist, maybe
E.T., Blade
E.T.
Runner. Yep.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, it's just an all-time good movie month.
yeah.
So, shout out to June 1982.
Yeah. Thanks for doing that for us.
Yeah, I'm certain that if not from me, you'll see plenty of articles of some of your all time favorite movies over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Starting with
I think that I was blind to like that thing that that was such a historic. I've always thought of it as like the summer of '82. I didn't realize so many of those movies were June. But once I've like found that out, I was just like, holy shit! Like that is unbelievable.
right. Wow, yeah. But yeah, I caught up with the most recent Marvel movie and then a semi recent Marvel
Yeah, the
movie.
most recent. Oh well, yeah, not quite the most recent before that, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. We did Sam Raimi episode last week well, last time actually rather with my guest. So yeah, then I wouldn't have talked about the Avatar trailer, John. And yeah, this is certainly a Marvel movie. It does have some like Sam Raimi isms. Like there's definitely things that will be familiar if you've seen some of his films. It was fun like seeing like how some of the characters even are animated in a way that recalls his work in like Evil Dead 2. And then of course Bruce Campbell has a cameo and it's fun to see him in this too.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I guess the biggest spoiler of the movie might have been we talked about it during the last episode actually, and I didn't know at that time until our guest told me about it, and that was that the Scarlet Witch is actually the villain of this
Huh.
movie. And it's funny because you think, oh, you just saw WandaVision, and even though she was kind of the antagonist in that, in a way, she you sort of thought she was good too. And She's definitely the antagonist of this movie is Doctor Strange and a new character, America Chavez. She's a new character in this, and they had to go through all these different multiverses, and it's kind of funny to see this movie after Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Yeah, right.
because that movie does this idea so much better. Um, but no, it was fine. I never thought like Doctor Strange was my favorite Marvel character to begin
Nope.
with. So he's just not someone that I'm invested in all that much. Like when the new Thor comes out, I'm a little bit more invested in Chris Hemsworth's character there. And yeah, these Marvel things, I don't want to talk too much about it, especially with being like a month out because like people get so crazy about spoilers. But
Yeah.
I could talk about the Eternals, John,
All
because
right.
that one's been out since like November.
Yeah, it's on Disney.
Yeah, and I thought when it came out on Disney Plus that I'd like watch it right away because it was
Yeah, me
directed by
too. I haven't
Chloe
seen it
Zhao,
yet.
and I was just like, oh man, I should totally see this movie. I would like it, and then like I just kept putting it off.
Yeah,
Uh,
same.
Maybe some of that was like its poor reception on Rotten Tomatoes, and like just critics were just like, eh. And maybe it was just fatigue from Marvel movies in general, or
Just this like obligation to see them all, and I'm just like, oh, do I have to?
right. And it's funny, like, because this movie does have star power in it, right? You have Angelina Jolie, you have
Yeah.
uh, Gemma Chan is actually probably the protagonist if you're gonna pick one out of like these 11 new characters. Um, I think you have two characters that were on Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
One,
right.
one, so it's just a humongous cast, and I think part of the problem that this movie had was it has to do so much in its runtime, and like there's just so many different characters that you have to like kind of learn to care about, and you can't be bothered with them.
Yeah.
um, I think that's its biggest problem, and it was funny. Like the day afterwards, I joked like maybe I couldn't remember like the characters' names, and it was still fresh in my mind. So maybe that was a good challenge. But like if I tried to like remember them now, forget about it.
One of the things I'm like really curious about that movie is like obviously like it was not well received. It was like the first like really kind of poorly received Marvel movie, I think.
Yeah,
Um
outside of the Edward Norton's Hulk, right? Like
sure.
that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like what are they going to do now with those characters that like nobody cares about, and like you said you can't name them, and like they've never had this problem before where it's like you have a movie with a character that for the first time an origin story or whatever, and then they get integrated into all these future sequels, and like are they going to do that? Are the Eternals going to get like their big like dropping in moment in like whatever, like you know Captain America Part 6, and it's be like, holy shit, the Eternals are here, yes. And like are they just gonna like forget that they did this and just like, well, they're kind of off in their universe now.
Yeah, it was
Thanks for
funny, John, too,
thanks for
because
coming.
like one of the post-credit scenes in Doctor Strange introduces a new character, and I was just like, "Is this supposed to be like someone from Eternals? Did I miss something?" Yeah, but anyways, it's just like so many different characters and things, and it's hard to keep it all straight. And John, I think one of the things I was going to talk about when talking about these movies is that like this idea of doing homework and how some of these movies won't be able to like stand on their own
Wow,
without
that's been a
like
problem
doing
for a while. Yeah.
homework, because I was just like, what do I need to see before I see Doctor Strange 2? And people had like lists. They were like, oh, you
Yeah.
had to watch Endgame, you had to watch WandaVision, you had
I
to
know,
watch
and now
like,
they're TV shows too.
yeah, you
It's
you had to
just
watch What If, like
what
episode
if?
4.
Jesus
And
Christ. I think that like if they're gonna do that, they're gonna lose people. And maybe they're fine with that. Maybe they're okay not having the big every movie be the biggest movie in the history of the world, which the last two Avengers movies I think were or close to it. And it's just like, no, we'll just have like a giant sizable following instead of like a gargantuan following. And it's going to be so interconnected though that they're going to be just like mind blown. And for me, I'm just like, I don't know, the whole like, okay, we're doing the multiverse now. To me, I'm so uninterested in that I feel like I don't really know that I'm gonna. If it wasn't Sam Raimi, there's no way I would have seen the Doctor Strange sequel. Now, as it is, like I'll probably watch it when it hits Disney Plus. But I said that about Eternals too. So I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Right.
And like besides like Black Panther 2, like there's not really anything upcoming from Marvel that I'm like pretty psyched for.
Yeah, so Thor and Guardians equally don't do too much for you then, huh?
No, I don't really care. I mean, that's fine, like,
Yeah,
but
no, it's fine. And then
so
then you have the next Brie Larson, right? So
yeah,
I guess that's what's in the
Captain
track there.
Marvel and the NFT Ponzi scheme. All right, well, there you go. That's your I guess Marvel report. After our Tom Cruise report. And I think that's going to do it for us this week. Max, thank you as always for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you, John.
And we'll talk to you all again soon.
Bye.